Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is great to have you here. This weekend I was talking to a friend of mine about the duality of trauma, essentially. They were talking about how, it seems like, they have conflicting emotions a lot of the time when they're, especially when they're talking to other people about, similar traumas that they've experienced. And I told her, she was going on about how it was exhausting. And I told her that, she experienced something that literally tore her apart inside. And that's one of the things that a lot of people talk about, especially, in heartbreaking situations. It's like it tore me apart. And essentially that's what it did. Like the things that I've been through, I feel like tore me apart. I was reading an article today, and they referenced the body keeps the score, and they were talking about, you can actually be affected physically by emotional trauma because your body essentially does keep the score of it. I was, after, losing as many people as I did, I had broken heart syndrome. And honestly, it almost killed me, And it is medically a thing where emotional traumas can affect the heart and sometimes even cause heart attacks and death. And it's something that I am still recovering from, both emotionally and physically. And so the duality of emotion, for somebody who has experienced great trauma in their life, or grief, great grief, can affect you physically and can cause that duality and that contradictive emotions. You can be happy and sad at the same time, like I said, because it quite literally tore you apart. And so, understanding that duality will help a lot in, processing these emotions, understanding that this is one of the things that I've suffered from quite a bit lately, actually, is understanding that I can have that duality and I can have that emotional turmoil. I beat myself up a lot lately, thinking I should be over this, I should have moved on. But then I feel guilty when I am feeling like I'm moving forward and moving on and such. I think a part of that comes from the idea that moving on, feels almost like I'm forgetting. But I'm not. I know that. There's going to be so many instances where I'm going to think of them. Songs are a big thing for me, music, and there are always going to be songs that are going to make me think about them. And, there are just going to be times in general when they're just going to pop into my head. So, I've got to understand that duality, that I can love them and miss them and still be happy, and that's okay. You know, sometimes balance comes from equaling out the scales, you know? And in order to equal out the scales, I'm going to have to accept that duality, you know, and understand that I can miss them and love them at the same time, you know, as being happy. So, I mean, you know, the happiness is what is rebuilding my heart, essentially. And I mean, we were talking about how, you know, there have been so many people that are just like, well, why do you do it again? Why do you, you know, keep falling in love just to, you know, end up, you know, essentially being lonely again? And because it's worth it. It really is. That feeling. I always say better late than never. You know, it is. It's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. I mean, the people that I've lost taught me how I deserve to be loved. And I will never forget them for that. They gave me such great confidence and love. I'm never going to forget that. Sorry. But I've got to put that into practice, you know, and help others, you know, recognize the way that they deserve to be loved as well, you know. And sometimes it really can be exhausting, but it's worth it, you know. Like I said before, you know, just seeing the growth and love from the people around me, you know. I just saw 333 on the counter, so which I believe is the angel number for stability. I don't know, I'll have to look that up. But you know, I see signs everywhere, and I've made it a point to do that, to see the signs, to help myself, to, you know, empower myself, build myself up, ensure myself that I'm on the right track. That's what these signs tell me. And I mean, I've chosen to focus on the good in this world, despite the horrible things that have happened to me. And that in and of itself is a lesson to others that it can be done. Now, I'm usually not one to endorse a commercial, but lately I've seen this commercial that I absolutely love. It's a woman, you know, who is standing there and everybody's kind of talking at her, per se. And it's, you know, she's standing in line for coffee, and this guy says, you know, coffee raises your cortisol level. And then the woman in front of her says, yeah, but it's good for your liver. And then, you know, she's just getting all of this advice from everyone around her. And finally she clicks on an app on her phone. And this app essentially tracks her health progress. And it says, listen to your body, not everyone else. I love that. That is fantastic. And I fully endorse that, because everybody is different. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. No one has experienced what you've experienced the way you've experienced it. And no one can understand or express those experiences the way that you can. And it's absolutely true. You know, people remember things differently, they express things differently, you know, just like they say everybody expresses grief differently. Well, everybody expresses every emotion differently. You know, it just all depends on you. You know, so, but with that duality does come a bright side. I mean, you know me, I'm a hopeless optimist. So while you can experience that duality with sadness and grief and pain, you can also experience that duality with happiness and joy. You know, you can experience that joy in two different ways. You know, that's one of the reasons why trauma survivors feel things so much more, you know, than a lot of people do. And they perceive things essentially in two different perceptions. So, you know, for just try to understand, be understanding with yourself that as much grief and, you know, heartache that you feel, and sometimes a lot of anger and fear that you feel, you can also feel fear and joy at the same time. You can also feel love and joy at the same time, both of them at the same time, essentially. So, I mean, that's why I say it's, you know, better late than never. And that's one of the reasons I put myself out there, is because my heart is big enough to love very deeply, even if it's just briefly. You know, with my ex, I still love him, and I still remember the good memories, and I hold that close to my heart. And sometimes I love him and hate him at the same time, but that's me, and I can understand that, you know. Instead of trying to pick a side, you know, do I love him or hate him? A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. So, I mean, you're allowed to experience that duality, and, you know, don't let anybody else tell you differently, because they don't know. They're not you. So, if you like my style, like and subscribe. We'll talk to you next time. Oh, you know what? Actually, if you've experienced this, you know, lately, drop me a comment. You'd be surprised how good it feels to actually express that duality. And I mean, there's no judgment here. It's not for me. And, you know, what everybody else thinks, like I said, they're not you. They don't know. So, we'll talk to you next time. Do something good for yourself. You do deserve it.